Ray Sanfrederico, Executive Director of the Manatee County Bar Association, and I'm here today with Judge Bob Ferentz. As part of our Manatee County Bar Association Historical Project, we are here today interviewing what we consider to be our vintage attorneys. And next, we have another one of our great legends, Jack Manson. Welcome, Jack.
Thank you.
Welcome, Jack. Thanks so much for being here. Obviously,
Well, it's my pleasure.
well, no, it's more our pleasure, but that's very nice of you to say because you're certainly an iconic attorney and member of the community for sure, and your stories are legendary, and we'll talk about the painting in a bit. But I do want to kind of start at the beginning. We don't normally go chronologically, but I want to. You're one of those rarities of a Southern attorney that's been here for a long time, but you actually were started up north, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and that was where?
That was at Manitowoc, Wisconsin. I was born in Chicago and moved to Milwaukee and moved to Sheboygan, Wisconsin, and then to Manitowoc. And I joined the Navy when I was 17 in 1944.
Wow.
And
Did you serve?
sure, I served 2 years. And then when I got out, I had taken some correspondence courses because I only went to 2 years of high school, and they let me graduate from Manitowoc High. And I went right to the university where I met my wife and married her there and had a son there.
Wow.
Well, in the 6 years when I was there. It was really a good life. I've been very fortunate.
So you went to undergrad, University of Wisconsin.
Yes.
Okay.
And then to law school.
And then to law school at the same
Right.
place. And
Sure.
now tell us about that as far as with regard to, so you had 2 years of high school, you go into college.
No, I went into the Navy.
Go into the Navy.
Yeah, for 2 years there.
And then college, then you get into law school. And then you became a member of the Wisconsin bar.
Yes.
And tell us about that because that's a
Well,
little different.
I was up in the upper 10% of my class, and I didn't even notice what it was about, but they had a standing that if you were in the upper 10%, you didn't have to take the Wisconsin bar. So I never did. I just was made a lawyer, and then I practiced on my own at Manitowoc for 2 years before I came down here.
Okay, now, and just to back up a little bit, because I think some of us at least know that Wisconsin is a pretty liberal college, correct? University?
Well, the university is liberal and Madison is, but the state is not necessarily. The farmers in the state are generally Republicans.
Okay. And the La Follettes were?
They were Democrats and they were very liberal, and that goes way back in the 20s and I think even into the teens.
Okay. And then you practiced for a couple of years up in Wisconsin.
2 years, yeah.
And then how would you get to Braden,
Well,
Florida?
I came down, my folks moved here. My father retired and moved here. And so I had visited and I took the bar here and I practiced it. And Mr. Daniel was a member of the bar committee, and he asked me, he gave me a job. So I moved down here and they paid me $175 a month. And all I did was examine abstracts. But they did teach me how to run a law office. And that was really good, because I got a woman here that was really excellent. She was with me for 58 years.
Wow. That's Bill Daniel?
Yeah, Bill Daniel.
And was he with Woodward at that time?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Yeah, he was the boss. Woodward was a cousin. Woodward is, of course.
Oh, here we go.
Here's Woodward is there. He was the major domo of the bar when it came to land. And so he wouldn't pass a deed that was held by the entireties unless he could see that the marriage was consummated. And so here he is at night up there on the roof looking through his spyglass to see if the marriages are consummated.
So good. Is Bill Daniel in that picture somewhere?
Oh, gee, I think.
Yeah, I didn't mean to catch you by surprise, but
No, well, I can't quite bend around. I don't know why he wouldn't be.
But that pretty much represented the entire Manatee Barn.
Well, no, I think there is one that I remember him. He wouldn't sit for a photograph, and here he is underneath. See his shoe that's
Right.
got a hole in it.
Right.
Well, he was kind of a nice guy too, but he just wouldn't.
So he's in there whether he wanted to or not.
Well, down here,
Yep.
that's why I put him.
I love this painting. So, Jack, are you a trained artist?
No, I did take some art when I was, say, in 7th or 8th grade, like that in Manitowoc. But I started out, I built a house that I'm still living in on Riverview Boulevard, on the river there. And all the bedrooms faced out on the river, and there was a walkway outside of the bedroom. And I bought my daughter for Christmas one year an easel and paints. And she never used them, so I started to paint. And that's how I started, and I really got going.
But no formal training.
No,
It's amazing.
Well,
Now, now when you came into town, generally speaking, approximately what year was that?
I came here in 1954, I think.
Okay.
54, 55, right in there.
Was the circuit bigger then? Was that, I mean, not the, well, yeah, the circuit, because that would have been back in the days of Judge Harrison, I guess?
Judge Harrison, and of course, he was a circuit judge for, I think, 4 or 5 counties.
Right.
He went all over. Yeah, and he had a terrible voice. It was almost impossible to understand. I think he was a good judge and a very good man. He was George's father, and George is right up here. There's
Okay.
George with the glasses talking to Dewey Jr.
Oh, okay, okay. Wow.
I think George was the best lawyer I ever met.
Oh, that's saying something.
Because
Because you've met a few.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
But really, all of them were great. You know, I got along with all of them. I ended up just doing real estate work for about 5 clients. Abe Sainer, I told you about him. When he was a very young man in New York, he was appointed as ambassador to King Zog of Yugoslavia. I mean, and so he came from a very wealthy family and everything, and he came down here and he built a number of big, huge buildings out there on the beach. And I did all of his work, you know, and Wilbur Boyd for 30 years.
Right.
I was Wilbur's attorney, but he never talked to me about it. The work just poured in. I think he did 17 different deals, and I did every one for him. But one time, I paid him $300,000. He represented me when I sold St. George Island to the state for $6,250,000. And he really earned his money too.
Wow. I don't even know where is that?
Well, that's right at Apalachicola.
Oh, okay.
It's the west 8 miles of Little St. George Island.
How do you get to own an island?
I bought it. Well, it wasn't just me, it was my father and some
I
other
figured.
people. And, but I was a lawyer and I handled everything, you know, and we bought it in 1970 or even earlier. And we sold it in 1975.
Wow.
Great. Do you have any other properties that
My
similar
father,
stories?
my father, who has retired, was a rancher. He owned 12,000 acres out at the Mayaca Head, and he did very well on that. They found phosphate on it. So, I mean, that was good. He owned the cemetery over here at that town that's just east of Palmetto.
Parish?
No, Parish is.
Duet?
No, even real close. It's smashed right up against
Ellington?
Ellington, right. And he owned the Inslee Grove, which was a big place. The Insleys were interesting people. They had come down here, and I think they had 8 or 9 children, but only one of them ever got married. And I met the girl, you know, when they finally decided to sell. They were from Long Island, New York. And Mr. Inslee was a very nice gentleman.
Nice.
So, and Woodward would be watching to see if these children got
Oh,
married
yeah.
for land
Well,
transactions.
not that, you just wanted to see if it was consummated.
Okay. I wasn't sure I'd go there, but do you want to want to talk about your service at all, just briefly, because you did mention you had
Well,
I guess enlisted.
I enlisted in the Navy, and they shipped me out to California, and they didn't have any barracks for us, so they gave me $3 a day and said, go to work, and they put me in a post office. So I worked at a post office for 6 months, and then they sent me over to Hawaii, and I did the same thing there. I had very good service, and when I got out, I got 3 months of college out of it, and the GI Bill, you know,
Sure.
and I really didn't ever have a bad time.
That's great.
That is great.
Suzanne?
Sure. So Jack, you are one of the people who tried cases in the old courthouse.
Yes.
Is that right? So can you describe what that was like?
Well, there was Judge Harrison. I've not tried a lot of cases, but I was not a partner of Tom Stewart's, but we were always together. He rented an office from me. And we always said, if you want to be a real lawyer, you got to have a jury trial every year. And that's what we would do. We would latch on to some, and we won some, and we lost some there. And Harry Parham, I've tried several cases when Harry was there. And you worked with the judge because he was a human being, and he had his way, and you made that your way. Did they make it your way?
Hopefully I've tried to do that, but I really respect and admire the forefather judges that we've had, and you've
Yeah,
seen them.
they were good people, you know, and I had a few good ones, and I had some bad ones. But we did do that just to make sure we were lawyers.
Sure.
I think that's a great idea, actually. It's really good. Do you want the painting, which has all the Manatee Bar Association members at that time, and they're in well done, but they're also a sort of caricatures. Are there a couple that you just want to point out and tell us
Well,
about?
the first one that here is Judge Blue.
Okay.
But I painted that picture on a wall on the offices that Goodrich and Hampton held with me. We had a rathskeller upstairs, and we had a television, and we ordered dinner brought in, and we had a real nice deal. But it was kind of drab, and so I started to paint on the walls. And that was the first one I did. And that was a picture that Jim Wallace had taken at a bar party out on the beach. A lot of those pictures were taken like that. This is Judge Boylston. You see his finger goes all the way through his hair. You know, he's still alive. He's over in Palmetto. And I talk to him every once in a while.
Why does his finger go through?
Well, I don't know. He was so handsome, I had to do something to him.
And you've got Judge Knowles there, Roberta Knowles.
Yeah,
She's wearing
and
a
my
tiara.
wife made me go and ask Roberta to do this. She said, you can't paint her otherwise. And so Roberta I tried some cases in front of her. And so she was very good. She said, sure. And she's holding that sheet up which she's going to drop, and then they can vote as to whether I properly painted her.
That's great.
So the women in the painting were willing participants.
Well, no,
Maybe
the only other woman, no, I didn't ask.
Connie McClure?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we have somebody that's a hawk, or the bird there.
Oh, yeah, well, that his name was Bird, Larry Bird.
Oh, Larry Bird in Sarasota,
Yeah,
okay.
right. Well, he
Okay.
was up here then
Okay.
for a short time. And that was just a joke for my kids. That was Harry Bird.
Wow, that's great.
I think we had a lot to do with Sarasota, it seems, in the early years, before we all got so big, you know.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, a little bit about that, but I mean, it's very collegial atmosphere.
Oh,
and,
yes.
And,
we
the
went to
two
meetings,
counties.
dinners down there at Sarah Bay, you know, and I was lucky enough to be appointed as a Ringling trustee, and that was a nice job. I had a very nice time there. Met a lot of nice people.
Well, hopefully it's the same now. I don't know and if you've had as much contact with it now, but you're right, it's so much bigger now.
Yeah,
Considering that's probably represents just about the entire bar membership at the time. I think we were discussing earlier that.
Yeah, I think only this guy down here, that is, I think I got everybody else. I've never had somebody say, why didn't you paint me, you know?
Right. No, it's wonderful.
But without Jim Wallace, and the reason I put that white wig on is he was bald. And so, well, he was,
Right.
I think his initials are down in the corner someplace. Because he really, without him, I couldn't have painted it.
Why is that?
Well, because I couldn't remember all those people, but he took he took an individual picture of each guy. And so I could stick, when I was going to paint somebody, I would just stick that right on the canvas, and then I had my paints, and I'd put the paints on the canvas, and off I'd go.
Wonderful.
So if you needed somebody's shot and they're looking into the painting from the right, you would call up Mr. Wallace and say, I need him.
I need two lefts or rights. The men from the are the judges, except for Clinch Kavanaugh, who always wanted to be a judge. And
So who's the super lawyer? Somebody has on over.
oh, okay.
Over to the right.
That was for Bill Grimes. And here, the T-shirt. He actually tried to get everybody in his office to wear kind of a uniform. But his sister, who was not a lawyer, she ran the office. I mean, she really was the boss, see? And I remember his father was there. And so that's why I painted Bill Grimes right on Carter Perry's T-shirt. And I put
And it's good likeness of him too.
Well, sure. Well, I had a good picture.
And Carter's got a little beanie on the top of his head.
I just threw that in.
Oh, okay.
Carter was a real nice guy, and I really liked him. Carter Perry, yeah.
Now I noticed the painting of yourself, you're in some very flamboyant clothing.
Oh, well,
What's that about?
Well, I just made that
Just
up.
made it up.
Artistic license.
Yes.
Sure. I wanted to stand out.
It's wonderful. Frank Schaub, I'm guessing, is
Yeah,
up here in a military uniform.
Right, and then Walter Talley down here. He was a public defender, and Frank, God bless him, you know, had to leave under bad colors. But I do see, I had seen Mrs. Schaub often because their kids played with my kids.
Now, looking at these actually iconic attorneys, and kind of goes back to the good old days, the beach parties that
Yes.
we had out on Anna Maria Island, out
Yeah.
at Braden Beach. And when do you think you got started with that?
Well, I think that it was partially there when I came. I got to be the president of the bar just because you kind of moved up, you know. And then I really started it, and it was some time before we started to invite the women, you know. But we always put on some kind of a buffoon thing, you know, about the bar, and it was very popular. And that's where Blues picture came from, but there were no women there at that time.
Right, and actually probably Judge Knowles may have been the first one out there, I think, was when she, to one of the beach parties.
Yeah, here's Knowles right here.
More importantly, you became the cook of the steak burgers.
Yes. Well, that was my dad, and then that they were really easy to do, and I guess everybody just adopted them. They were just wonderful.
I think that's why there was such a good attendance out there was those steak
Sure,
burgers.
yes.
We still do them.
Uh-huh.
We still do them, and now I am entrusted with marinating the steaks.
Yeah, really.
Lot of
With, I
pressure.
think, your recipe, your secret recipe.
I don't remember, we bought them at a special place and they cut them for us, you know.
For sure.
But I haven't been to a bar meeting for a long time. You know, I retired 4 years ago. And
Well, that's a long career. When
Six-
did you become
six-
a member of the Wisconsin Bar?
like, let's see, that would be 1952.
Okay.
I was a member of the bar for 65 years.
Wow. Now, you would have been, and it was a little before my time, but it was actually the year of this painting. Do you remember the constitutional amendment, the Florida constitutional amendment that changed the judiciary and
Yes.
the judicial system? And can you tell us a little bit about that? Because up
I
until
don't
then, there
really
was
remember anything about that.
But you remember they had like an island judge and a palmetto judge and an ordinance judge.
Well,
I'm trying to think of some of the names, but
yeah, by this time, by 1970, I was doing 90% real estate.
okay.
And I had these wonderful clients. They built most of the stuff around here. And they just took care of me, you know, and I got along very well with all of the other lawyers. But I never sent any of those clients a bill. I always just took the money, I closed their deals for them, and I just took my money out.
The good old
And then
days.
I gave them theirs too. They got theirs, I got mine.
That's great.
And they were, but this Mr. Sainer was really a tremendously interesting man. His wife was a cellist at the Florida Orchestra, and they owned a house that just had one room down on the Keys in Sarasota. He was shunned by the Sarasota Bay because he was very Jewish, and my folks put on a party every year at Sarah Bay. That's where Dad played golf, and they would always ask me if I had anybody, and I said, well, Mr. and Mrs. Sainer, you know, and they came, and afterwards he told me, he said, I wouldn't have put my foot in that den, but your folks asked me, and it was wonderful. I was there among everybody. He really was quite a guy.
Yeah, I remember it well.
Did you know him?
I did, yeah.
You knew Joel then.
I did. As a matter of fact, for a while, this isn't about me, but our law firm, when I was with Hugh McGuire, we represented him still.
Oh, I
So,
see, yeah.
But that's interesting because we like to talk a little bit more about inclusion and diversity. For example, when we were talking to Bob Blaylock, he was saying that when he went to Princeton, yeah, I think, yeah, when he went to Princeton in his class, there was only 2 females. And of course, that's
Same
changed.
at the University of Wisconsin.
That's what I was thinking, and you know, now with you've seen the changes of the female members of the bar, the people of color of the bar, members of the Jewish faith of the bar, and all that. So I mean,
Well, we only had one member of the bar that was black. He was really a nice guy. And I just forget his name now.
Leon Robinson?
That Leon, yeah, he was nice. And, but he came along later. I don't know if there are members of the bar that are black now.
Yeah, there are.
Okay, okay, but yeah, it's...
Well, I would hope so.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
right. Well, you've seen a lot of changes from, when you think about from the mid-50s until now. So.
Well, we got big. We were little when I came here. You know, you got out here to 59th Street, and that was the end. There wasn't anything else, you know. You could go down a sand road, and then there was a subdivision out there on the bay, still there, you know. But there just weren't all these people here.
Yeah, no, I understand.
I think there were like 20,000 people. I don't have any idea how many there are. I'm sure that there's 100,000 in the county now.
Oh, there's like 400,000, I think.
In the county?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Well, it's spread out. Back in the days when you were going out west and that, it's all developed now. So.
Well, I noticed you can drive north of Parrish and you're almost always among subdivisions going into Tampa.
Correct. Yeah.
Boy.
Yeah. Do you have anything, or do you?
No.
I'm just wondering. We want to give you the opportunity, Jack, because we're so happy to have you here.
Well,
if
thank
anything
you.
you want to talk about?
Well, no, I would say this. This has been a very good town. I mean, we had some good governors. We had some very interesting people that were here, you know, and we had see, now I can't call somebody's name, but I was always very well received, and I had lots of friends. It was a very nice place to live, you know. And my kids, my 5 kids all grew up here and went to the high school and then went off to college or whatever they were going to do. And I could see all of my kids, one of them died early, but all of my kids were very successful. My daughter married in an old family whose ancestor was a governor of Florida. Yeah, and now my 2 boys have been in business here for 40 years. It's their 40th anniversary, and they're roofers, and they have a big roofing company. And my youngest son, he went to the Culinary Institute in New York and became a chef. And he's worked for the Childs for the last 22 years.
Wow.
Yeah, he's there. The hierarchy comes and goes, but William stays.
Comes home to roost. Well, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Have you been back to Wisconsin at all?
I've been every place.
Okay.
I've been around the world twice. I've been to China and Japan and India. You know, I've been to Bali, Java and Sumatra, and of course I've been down under, you know, and then I've been to Arabia. I had dinner at a house in Arabia where they did not allow men except us off the boat, you know. South America, I've been all over South America, and Mexico, and Canada. I've taken trains all across the United States. I took a plane out to the West Coast, got on a train, and went all the way to the Atlantic Ocean on it. Wonderful. I just loved it, just by myself. And my 2 wives,
I know, right?
We're all underachievers.
I really lucked out with my women. They were just Well, they really were. Well, the first one just loved kids, and I kept having to, where'd that one come from? You know, and so then I married, after Gail died, I married Dolores, and that was kind of odd. I went to a party, this was 4 months after Gail died, to my daughter-in-law, my sister-in-law's house at Christmas. And when I was walking out, there was a table that was just full of beer cans. You couldn't have gotten another. And standing on the other side was Dolores, who I knew for some time. She was a friend of my in-law. And she just smiled at me. And so I walked around, and she came over to me. And she didn't touch me, but she came and she pressed herself completely against me, and she kissed me, a long kiss. And again, didn't touch me, and I didn't touch her. And so then I said to my brother-in-law, who they were coming to dinner at New Year's, I said, bring Dolores along.
So good.
It's a sweet
It's
story.
really sweet.
Well, it was a lovely thing.
No,
It really was. 8 months later, I married her. Yeah.
That's wonderful.
So, well, I'm just in awe of everywhere you've traveled. So, what was your favorite place that you visited?
Well, I didn't really have one, but I tell you, I went to Scotland, where my folks came from. That was in 1836. And I still had cousins there. And that was very nice. I went back there to play golf, too. But Switzerland, there was a family, Bonjour, and they had come to Savannah, Illinois. And their daughter was my great-grandmother. And I remember her when I was a child. She died when I was about 6. My Irish ancestors, Reagan was famous. My uncle told me that his sister, his aunt, told him that her father had come to this country because he'd killed an Orangeman. And that's a guy, well, he's not on there. So what I've done is I've written 6 books just about my family and my wife's families. They're piled up like that. And I've written 6 other books that are just fun. And I've had a very good life. I never hurt. You know, I've had appendicitis and those things like that. But I really have never been sick.
Wow, that's wonderful.
Well, I'm darn lucky.
Yeah, well, no, I would, but
Well.
no, good for you. And honestly, I mean, I've known you for a long, long time. The members of the bar have, but this is all so much new information. It's just fascinating, a fascinating life, and we're so happy that you agreed to come here and talk to us.
But other people have done a whole lot more than I've done on the history of the bar, you know, here. And let's see, what is his name?
Gilbert Smith.
Gilbert Smith. He really has done a fabulous job. And I've been in several. I've been with these guys before, out there dressed up and going into one of the old cabins and stuff like that. So.
Well, we're glad that you're still active, and we'll have hopefully another beach thing come this spring. So
Well, that's nice.
need you there.
Yeah, Well, I got a bad leg, so I don't get out much. But
No,
I've got a big family that take care of me, you know. And I'm lucky to have, you know, at my age, to have 5 kids. Well, that's true.
Yeah. No, good for you. Good for
Yeah,
you.
So,
That's wonderful.
and you folks are great, you know, to keep in on this. I remember when I was president, we had a wonderful secretary, and I sent her to school so she could learn shorthand. That was, you know, and she did. She stayed on with, I can't call her name right now, but she was very good. and we had an office with the community fund downtown here. They've redone those buildings and everything. So, do you? Oh, you have an office in the new courthouse.
In the new courthouse.
Oh yes, well I've seen that. That's where the painting is.
Correct.
Right.
It's
Exactly the full size.
really held up for a long time.
It sure does. It gets a lot of attention when people could go in that room to see it.
Because of those paints that you used from your daughter. You know,
Yeah.
No, at that time then I didn't. I bought all good quality paint, and it's all oil.
Oil,
Well,
I
it's made out. I tell you, I did the base with acrylics, which are good because they dry right away. You can paint on them. Oils you got to be very careful with. See, you know. And I did. Oh, you asked me did I ever have anybody teach me? I did. De Soto. He was a direct descendant of De Soto. Used to come to our parties down here all the time, every year, and stayed at my house. Well, he was a professional painter, and he taught me quite a bit while he was here. So, taught me the shading and how you approach this and everything. And so I did have some instruction, but this was much later.
That was after this painting.
Well, no, he used to come, and he stayed in our house. She stayed there because, oddly enough, my first wife, who was a German girl, spoke excellent Spanish. She got it in college, and so the ambassador used to stay with me many times, and other grandees of Spain. And children, we had children all the time. I'll tell you a quick story about one child. I've been given a radio to deliver to Spain when I took a trip in the Mediterranean. But when I tried to get off with the radio, the Civil Guard wouldn't let me out. They were really bad. And so I got to the big city on the east coast of Spain, and this boy came along and had dinner with us. And when he left, I said, "Would you take this radio?" I said, "Well, still, and deliver it." Oh, he said, "Sure, give it to me." And so here he is. He's just got an open shirt, and he's just got flip-flops or something on. He's just a kid, and he walks down the gangplank, and three of these guys with machine guns on their backs run over at him, like that, you know. And he walked all the way up to him. Then he went like this, and he had a gold badge with a red death head on it. He was a member of the Civil Guard. He was a lieutenant in the Civil Guard. And he died in Madrid in a fight with some dopers. But I hear all the time from the kids that came to stay with us.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, Jack, let me finish with this. You've written some books, right?
Yes.
You really need to sit down and write a book about your life, an autobiography, because
I don't know.
It's fascinating. I mean, it's incredibly fascinating. And it's especially fascinating when you think, you know, little Braden and watching it grow. Yeah. So this has been wonderful.
But I've had a good life. I really have a good life.
Yeah, this is wonderful. But we really, really do appreciate you
well,
taking
thank
the
you.
time. No, thank you, Jack.
You too.
Thank you.
No, this is great.